for our final video about God's attributes, we'll be discussing his omniscience, or his perfect knowledge, his all-knowingness, however you want to say it. Right, so here, the rough idea is supposed to be that God knows everything there is to know, every fact there is to know about the universe. He knows all of the underlying principles of physical reality, right? So everything that the sciences are trying to figure out, he knows all that. Every mathematical problem, he knows the answer to every single one of those. He knows facts about how each of you are feeling right now, how you'll feel when you're 55 years old. He knows all the facts about you in that sense, right? So he knows everything there is to know about you. What else does he know? Literally any fact you can think of about the universe, he knows. So God could essentially give you a very detailed description down to whatever the smallest level is, right? So down to beyond the atom. And he can tell you where the placement of every particle is at every second. So if you say, hey God, what was going on February 18th, 2016, he could give you a complete description of the world. What every single person's doing, what every object's doing, where it's all located, what they're saying to each other, what people are thinking at that moment, so on and so forth. There's no limit to what God can know. So there's some other issues here, but the biggest one that I want to raise, so most of the discussion here about omniscience, there's not much more to say, right? We already know. It's just God knows all the facts there are to know about the universe. What's more interesting when we talk about omniscience is that it seems to lead to a lot of problems. So giving God this essential attribute of all-knowingness seems to let us run into a number of issues when we're trying to define God. And the first is that it seems like saying God knows everything there is to know limits our free will, might even make our free will impossible. We might lose our free will if God is all-knowing. How does that work? Well, remember, I said God knows every fact there is to know about the universe. And that doesn't mean he just knows every present fact. He also knows every future fact. Right? So God knows what I'll do after I'm done recording this lecture. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I might go eat dinner. I might sit and watch TV, so on and so forth. I haven't made up my mind yet, but God knows what I'll do at that time, and so on and so forth. God knows what I'll be doing 20 years from now at every given moment, and he knows that about each of you as well. Given how he's created the world, he knows what we'll choose at every given moment. That seems to be at odds with the idea that we have free will. Right? So imagine I'm thinking about what I'm going to do when I'm done recording this lecture, and I'm thinking I'll either make dinner or watch TV. Turns out, God already knows I'm going to go watch TV. Right? So even though I haven't made up my mind, when it comes down to it, say I close the laptop and move on, and I sit there and I think, hey, I'm going to make the choice to watch TV. In what sense have I really made that choice, since God already knew that's what I was going to do? Right? So for us to have free will, it seems like we have to be able to choose something different. I need to be able to walk out of the room and then actually make a choice, right? So it needs to be the case that I could choose to watch TV, or I could choose to go make dinner. But if God already knows that I'm going to choose to watch TV, then it doesn't seem like any other option is open to me. So it seems like if God's all-knowing and knows all these future facts about the world, then we don't have free will in that sense. We'll talk about some solutions to this problem later on in the semester. Right now, I just want to sort of stoke some intuition, stoke some rough ideas, get you guys thinking about what it means to be God and have all of these characteristics. The second reason omniscience is problematic is because God's supposed to be omniscient in addition to omnipotence and his omnibenevolence, right? So he's supposed to have all three of these characteristics at once. So when you're all-knowing, this actually raises some problems. So how can there be some evil in the world, right? So we know God's supposed to be perfectly good, so he can't allow evil in the world, right? Because that would mean he's failing to be perfectly good. But if he's all-knowing, then he already knows that evil is going to occur in the world, and he knows at every moment what types of evil will be occurring. And he's known this for eternity, right? So when God was thinking about creating the universe, and he saw, okay, this is how I'm going to put the universe together and set it out into motion, he already knew that the World Trade Center would be taken down. He already knew that World War II would happen. He already knew all of these big atrocities would occur, but he still created the world anyway. So how can we make sense of that? How can God be all-knowing, so he knew that there would be evil in the world, yet still created a world where evil would occur? So if God was perfectly good and didn't want evil in the world, shouldn't he have just decided, hey, I'm not going to create that world anymore. I see that there will be evil in it, and that's not something that I should create. In addition, it seems like once we combine omniscience and omnibenevolence, especially when we add this idea that God is all-powerful, it seems like he should be able to eradicate evil at any point, right? So if I'm omniscient, I can see, say we're in the 1700s, right? I can see that in the 1940s we'd have these great wars, right? I should be able to just step in and stop them, and it shouldn't be a problem for God to do that. So it seems like, once again, we have a hard time explaining why there's evil in the world if God could see it coming and had the power to prevent it from happening. Right? So omniscience gives you a couple of different dilemmas, right? We have this issue between God knowing when evil would happen, creating the world anyway, even though he's perfectly good. Those things seem at odds. Even if God did create the world and that was still good for some reason, we know he's omnipotent. So even now the world's in motion, he should be able to step in and sort of extinguish any type of evil that is going to occur. So omniscience gives us these multiple issues. So I think it's sort of hard to understand what omniscience is because we have such a limitation to the knowledge that we can have. But just think of it as God knowing every possible fact there is to know. And I think that'll give you sort of a rough idea of what's going on here. And then, so the number of issues that omniscience brings, some are problems for omniscience just by itself, like the problem for our free will. Some of the problems are a combination with omniscience with God's other attributes. And so when you combine it with goodness or all-powerfulness, we get the other problems we've talked about. So that's it for omniscience this week, and I think that's it for the attributes this week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.